There's a certain irony in being a Beatle. You create songs that define generations, melodies so iconic that they become part of human culture itself. But behind the perfection of those records, there's frustration, exhaustion, and at times the feeling that you've created something so elaborate, you can never truly perform it again. For Paul McCartney, that moment came with one of the Beatles' most famous songs, a song so complex, so delicate, that even he admitted it was a pisstake to play live. That song was You Never Give Me Your Money. By 1969, the Beatles were no longer a band, not in the way they once were. They were four men orbiting around a fading dream, held together only by the gravitational pull of their own history. Money, fame, and endless creative ambition had created cracks in the once perfect surface. The joy of playing live was long gone. The touring years were over, drowned out by screaming crowds and the madness of Beatlemania. And so, when Paul began writing You Never Give Me Your Money, it wasn't just a song, it was a confession, a reflection of what the Beatles had become. A business, not a brotherhood. You Never Give Me Your Money was Paul's attempt to make sense of the band's collapse. The title itself was a reference to the Beatles' chaotic financial situation after the death of their manager, Brian Epstein. Apple Corps, their dream of a creative utopia, had turned into a bureaucratic nightmare. Paul later explained, "It was symbolic of where we were heading. All the great dreams we'd had were starting to crumble. But unlike a typical breakup song, You Never Give Me Your Money was anything but straightforward. It was fragmented, shifting from soft piano ballad to rock jam to dreamlike lullaby. Each section represented a different emotion, a different Beatle, a different stage of the band's unraveling. When Abbey Road was being made, the tension inside EMI Studios was thick enough to cut with a knife. John was distant, often absent. George was bringing in some of his best songs, only to have them overlooked. Ringo was tired of the fighting, and Paul, ever the perfectionist, was desperate to keep things alive. You Never Give Me Your Money became his emotional centerpiece, a musical journey through hope, frustration, and escape. From the gentle piano introduction, You Never Give Me Your Money, to the haunting refrain, One sweet dream came true today. It felt like a farewell in slow motion, but for all its beauty, it was a nightmare to play live. The song wasn't built for the stage, it was a studio tapestry. Layers of overdubs, harmonies, tape loops, and transitions that blurred the line between dream and reality. When asked years later if he ever performed it live, Paul laughed and said, "That one's a pisstake to play. It's got too many bits." The song is divided into several sections, each one completely different in tone and rhythm. The opening is a melancholic piano ballad. Then it slides into a rock interlude before dissolving into a dreamy, almost psychedelic finale. That complexity, which made it a masterpiece, also made it impossible to recreate live without a full orchestra and multiple vocalists. Paul, who prided himself on being able to perform most Beatles songs with ease, admitted that You Never Give Me Your Money was the exception. And it wasn't just about the technical challenge, it was emotional. Every time he played it, it brought him back to the end of the Beatles, the contracts, the lawyers, the heartbreak. At its core, You Never Give Me Your Money is a song about disillusionment, about dreams sold and promises broken. It's the Beatles saying goodbye to their innocence, not with anger, but with weary acceptance. Lines like, "Out of college, money spent, see no future, pay no rent," speak of the fleeting nature of youth and idealism. Then, the tone changes. One sweet dream, pick up the bags, get in the limousine. As if they're escaping into fantasy, driving off into a dream that no longer exists. It's heartbreak disguised as melody. Hope wrapped in resignation. And perhaps that's why Paul found it so difficult, not just to play, but to revisit. When Abbey Road was released in September 1969, You Never Give Me Your Money stood as the quiet soul of the album's medley, a thread connecting the fragments that followed. It was the sound of a band looking back on their own empire. They knew it was ending. They just didn't know how to let go. Even George Martin, the fifth Beatle, recognized the emotional power of the song. He called it one of Paul's finest pieces of writing, deeply personal, but also universal. Decades later, Paul would still speak about the song with a mix of pride and pain. He loved what it represented, the creative ambition, the honesty. But performing it live, that was another story. "It's not that I don't love it," he said. It's too bloody complicated. It's a piss take to play." And he wasn't exaggerating. Even with modern technology and his expert touring band, "You Never Give Me Your Money" remains one of the few Beatles songs Paul rarely attempts on stage. Today, "You Never Give Me Your Money" is remembered not just as part of the Abbey Road medley, but as a song that captured the bittersweet beauty of the Beatles' final days together. It's a song about endings, disguised as a dream. A song too intricate, too personal, to ever truly perform the same way again. And maybe that's fitting. Because some songs aren't meant to be recreated. They're meant to be remembered, frozen in time, just like the band that made them. So when Paul calls it a piss take to play, what he's really saying is this: it's not just hard to perform, it's hard to relive.